first thing Sarah Miller noticed when she opened the metal box wasn't the bone fragments or the dried blood, it was the smell. A thick, metallic tang mixed with something sweet and rotten, like spoiled meat left in a damp cellar. Her fingers traced the cold, damp surface of what looked like a human jawbone, the texture like wet chalk against her skin. Then came the sound. A low, wet scratching from deep within the hole, as if something was trying to dig its way back up. The air grew heavy, thick with ozone as if before a storm, pressing down on her chest until each breath became a struggle. In that moment, Sarah understood her family's frantic warnings weren't about protecting her from a painful truth. They were trying to protect the world from what her bloodline had been burying for generations. She clutched the shovel, its wooden handle slick with sweat. The coordinates from her father's diary had led her to this patch of Texas clay. She expected bones, something tangible to bury her grief. But when the lockbox emerged, caked in damp earth, the air grew heavy with something else entirely. It wasn't human remains inside that box. What she discovered within would completely rewrite her personal history. Her entire family lineage suddenly became alien to her. The people she called family for decades were now complete strangers. Sunlight washes over the Miller family photos, each flickering briefly on screen. Sarah Miller's childhood seemed the picture of American perfection. Her parents, John and Evelyn, radiated warmth in every captured moment, and her younger brother Mike completed what appeared to be an idyllic family portrait. The red brick house stood on Maple Drive, but a persistent cold spot lingered in the air. Her father, John, a quiet accountant, had one ironclad rule: never play in the far corner of the backyard, past the old oak tree. No swing set there, no vegetable garden, just that forbidden space, just untouched, hard-packed earth. It wasn't even a discussion, it was just a fact of our lives, like don't touch the stove. That part of the yard was off limits. We used to joke it was where Dad buried his bad tax return. That mystery faded into background noise, until Evelyn, Sarah's mother, succumbed to a sudden illness. In the hollow weeks that followed, Sarah moved back home to help her father sort through a lifetime of belongings. That's when she found it, tucked inside a Bible on his nightstand, her father's old journal. Sarah's breath hitched. Her mother's familiar handwriting was scrawled across the front cover. It read, "John's Thoughts, 1992. The year we first crossed the threshold." I opened it, a knot of guilt tightening in my chest, and on the final page, beneath the scrawled ink, a crude drawing of our backyard materialized. An X, stark and deliberate, was placed just past the old oak. The air itself seemed to grow dense, carrying the faint, metallic scent of old rain on cold earth. And just 2 words: "I'm sorry." The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and ozone as Sarah's torch beam cut through the darkness. Every true crime story she'd ever consumed echoed in her mind like a warning bell, each detail now terrifyingly relevant. A primal dread took hold as the shovel's edge scraped against something solid in the cold, sticky soil beneath her feet. Was the quiet man she called father actually someone else? Was this a shallow grave? Driven by a toxic brew of grief and dread, she waited until his breathing grew slow and deep. That night, beneath a sliver of bone-white moon, Sarah Miller began to dig. Her shovel bit into the earth where the mark had been made. The only sound, the damp scrape of metal, and the frantic rhythm of her own heart. The soil resisted, dense and unyielding. Each scrape of the shovel a sharp, echoing protest. The sound was obscenely loud in the oppressive quiet of the night. With every thrust, my muscles tensed, expecting the sudden, heavy weight of my father's hand on my shoulder. The air smelled of cold earth and a faint, metallic tang that stuck in the back of my throat. The thought echoed relentlessly through her mind. What did you do? What did you do? Then, 3 feet down, her shovel struck metal with a jarring clang that pierced the night. The sound was wrong, too solid, too hollow, and the realization hit her. This wasn't a body. A cold, metallic scent rose from the earth, and the air grew thick with a dread she couldn't name. The lockbox was heavy and rusted, like something pried from an old bank vault. Her fingers shook as she forced the stubborn lid open, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, there were no bones, no jewelry, nothing she expected to find. Only a cold, metallic emptiness that seemed to swallow the light around it. Just bundles of letters, tied with faded ribbon, and a single, smaller jewelry box. Sarah. I opened the first letter. The salutation wasn't to Evelyn. It was to Clara. The handwriting was my dad's, but younger, messier. The letter was a desperate love note, pleading for a fresh start together, to leave the past behind forever. It spoke of a passionate escape, of building a new life far from old shadows. But the name, Clara, echoed through every line, a ghost in the ink. Who was Clara? The question hung in the stale bedroom air, thick with the scent of old paper and unease. Her expression twisted into bewildered horror. The letters revealed a story her father had buried. Clara was his first love, a chaotic and intense chapter before the military, before her mother. The final letter was a venomous breakup, thick with Clara's cold, unresolved anger. But the final words were a frozen whisper. You can't just bury things and pretend they never existed, John. Some things don't stay dead. Sarah's voiceover, thick with a dawning horror, continued. Then I opened the little jewelry box. The air in the room grew dense and metallic, like the scent before a storm. Inside was a tiny, pristine baby wrap, silver, and an ultrasound photo, dated 1991. The name in the corner, Clara Reynolds. My hands went numb. I did the math. 1991. We moved here in 92. In the journal. The realization hit like a physical blow. That apology wasn't written in 92. It was waiting for us. Sarah placed the lockbox on the worn kitchen table, its cold metal surface stark against the wood. Across from her, her father John sat, his face etched with decades more weariness than she remembered. The air between them grew thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic. Every creak of the house seemed to hold its breath as the box sat between them, unopened. John descended the stairs and saw it. His body folded into the chair as if his bones had dissolved. The warmth drained from his face, leaving a pale, waxy mask. The gentle accountant was gone, replaced by a man hollowed by terror. Sarah's voice, filmed in that eerie recreation, quavered as she whispered the questions that had been haunting the investigation. "Who is Clara?" she asked, the name hanging in the damp, stale air of the room like a forgotten secret. "Who was she to you?" Her words were barely audible over the faint, rhythmic dripping of water from somewhere unseen. Then, a breath hitched in her throat before the final, horrifying realization escaped her lips. Was this your child? Did something happen to them?" John stares. Not at Sarah, but through her. A long, agonizing silence hangs in the air, thick with unspoken horror. John finally whispers, his voice cracking with emotion. "I loved your mother. The moment I met Evelyn, I knew. She was my peace. A quiet harbor in my chaotic world. But Clara was a storm. We were just kids then, playing in the shadows of things we couldn't yet name. The air around her always carried the faint metallic tang of ozone, a warning I was too young to understand. It ended badly when she sent that last letter, with the ultrasound tucked inside. I was deployed overseas. The envelope smelled faintly of her perfume, a ghost of lilac in the stale, dusty air. I wrote back, my pen scratched across the page, each word a lead weight. Outside, the wind carried a distant metallic groan, the sound of something old and wrong settling into the desert night. I pleaded for a chance to speak, to make things right. No reply. For months, the world seemed to lurch beneath Sarah's feet. A damp, metallic scent hung in the still air, and a sticky dread settled in her chest. This was no ordinary crime story. Her fingers were just inches from her father's hand when his hollow voice cut the air again. "Jump." I came home, tracked her down. The metallic scent of old blood seemed to seep from his words. A heavy, suffocating dread settled in the room, thick as the silence he left behind. She occupied a rundown apartment in El Paso, walls stained with years of neglect. Her mental state had deteriorated into a constant, gnawing paranoia. The air carried a faint, metallic scent, like old pennies and damp earth. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside, felt like a direct threat. Her voice was raw with accusation. She claimed the baby was gone, and that my leaving had caused it. Then, her anger shifted. Her hand extended, offering a small, unadorned wooden box. The air around it felt dense and cold, like a pocket of winter in the room. A faint, metallic scent of iron and something older, like damp earth, reached me. He handed me the dirt-caked bundle, whispering, "This is all that remains." His voice dropped to a hollow rasp. "You wanted it. You bury it." Sarah's breath caught as she realized. "So you buried it? In our yard?" A faint scent of damp earth and something metallic hung in the air, like some. Her words trailed into the heavy silence. John's eyes glistened, not with sorrow, but with a profound, unsettling terror. A metallic scent, like old pennies and damp earth, seemed to cling to the air around him. "No, Sarah," he whispered, his voice a frayed thread of sound. "You don't understand." The confession hung between them, cold and heavy. I took the box. I drove it home. At first, I dismissed it as grief, as raw, consuming rage. But 7 days later, the disturbances began. The calls would connect, followed only by the sound of labored, wet breathing. Each exhale carried the faint, coppery scent of blood and the damp chill of a forgotten place. My tires were slashed. A dead bird lay on my porch, and a note read, "You have what's mine." The air carried the iron scent of rain and the faint, sickly odor of decay from the small, still form on the wooden planks. I unfolded the damp, creased paper. The handwritten words seemed to pulse with a cold, possessive fury. A deep, instinctive dread settled in my gut. It was her, Clara. Her mind was fractured, volatile, a genuine threat. I was certain she'd return for it. The air in the room thickened, tasting of dust and something metallic, like old pennies. A faint, rhythmic scratching began behind the wall, a sound like dry fingernails on plaster. Every instinct screamed to flee, but a cold, sticky dread held me rooted to the spot. For you, for Mike, for your mom. So I buried it.
To hide it from her. To protect us. Sarah stared, her face a mask of disbelief. The damp, metallic scent of turned earth filled the cramped space. "That's it," she finally breathed, the words barely a whisper. "You were being stalked? Dad, we could have gone to the police."
John finally looks at her, his gaze heavy, with a truth far more terrifying than she imagined. "Sarah, it stopped. The day I buried it, it all stopped. The calls came first, each one a ghostly echo through the receiver. Then, the notes arrived, the paper damp and smelling faintly of mildew and rust. Every detail, every whispered threat, was cataloged in a mind now frayed by dread. For 25 years, this was the rhythm of his existence, a relentless, haunting pulse. Peace, until your mother fell ill. 2 weeks before her diagnosis, a single, unstamped envelope appeared in our mailbox. It sat there, silent and slick with a cold dampness that clung to the paper. The air around it smelled faintly of ozone and old, forgotten rock. That envelope was the first crack. The moment before, the quiet shattered for good. Her eyes widened at the photo. A crude circle drawn around the gnarled oak. The air grew heavy with a metallic scent at the implication cell. This wasn't about a past misdeed. It was a marker for something yet to come. It wasn't just an object. It was a token, a bargaining chip he buried deep in the earth to purchase his family's safety. Now Clara's discovery had torn up that contract, signaling in the most visceral way that the deal was irrevocably off. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp earth, as if the very ground remembered the pact. And from somewhere unseen, a low, rhythmic scratching began. Not from the surface, but from deep below it. The police documented Sarah and her father's account, launching a search for Clara Reynolds. Yet every lead ended at a dead end. No current address could be found. Outside, the deepening evening stretched the oak shadow of a dark figure toward the silent house, and the hole in the earth remained, a visible and unanswered question. After 1993, there was no trace of her Social Security activity. She dissolved into the air like mist, leaving only a box of echoes and a lifetime of dread. The scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old coins, clung to the memory. Fill the hole back in, but you can always see the patch. You know, the grass in that spot is a different color, a sickly, unnatural hue. My father lives alone in that house now, staring at that discolored patch every single day. It's not guilt that holds his gaze, not for any crime he committed. It's the raw terror of a realization that his family's safety was never a guarantee, only a temporary loan, and the payment is now due. The family secret wasn't a body buried in the backyard. It was a ghost. Her father had interred a volatile collection of love and profound loss. He believed literal burial was the only way to shield his family from its haunting resonance. Now, that emotional debt has come due, seeping into the very air with a scent of damp earth and old roses. The ultimate act of protection, born from a love that was itself a kind of haunting. But here's the question that keeps Sarah awake at night, and the one I'll leave with you. When you bury a secret to keep your family safe, are you burying a problem? Or are you just planting a seed? And what happens when whatever or whoever you buried finally decides to dig its way out? The air turns frigid, thick with the scent of wet clay and old rot. A low, wet scraping begins beneath the ground, a sound of earth being clawed from within. Then, silence, absolute, suffocating silence.